life today probably looks very different than what I thought about 15 years ago when I was kind of, going through my own troubles and mental health issues. And 4 times I missed my exit. And my sister stopped me and said, "Why are you yelling at that person?" And I'm like, "Well, they cut me off." She's like, "They probably didn't even know they cut you off." So they read an example and like, "Holy cow, I do that." I just need to ask myself the question, what if I did it differently? Is this the person I want to be? It's like, stop, just breathe, be kind. You might need to be kind to yourself because you might have to be kind that you almost did something you would have regretted, right? I am doing great today. Our sun is shining. It's been pretty windy and rainy lately, so it was a beautiful weekend, and I got to spend it with my family, which is something I really enjoy doing. But a beautiful life today means that I'm in control of the decisions I make. It's up to you to make the change. You can't tie your own change to somebody else. People aren't meant to be alone. They're not meant to live in isolation. They're meant to be part of something bigger.
People, hope you're doing well. Today I bring to you this podcast with the very talented Jennifer Weis. Jennifer is equally feisty and pragmatic. She is a director for partnership with the Microsoft. At the same time, she is an Ironman championship participant, and she successfully completes Ironman, which includes basically running, swimming and cycling, all three together. And she does it with her son. Not only do they do this together, they climb to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro and they climb to the top of Mount Cameron together. And she has had a journey of her life. And that's what we talk about. We talk about her journey of life, her journey of how she got into the cycle of success and how it led her down a spiral of actually self-defeating patterns, which she quickly caught herself in and then changed the trajectory back for herself with a very new perspective for life. We talk about her book, Caught in the Act, and whether it's relevant for you and me. I asked her this question and she has answered it, so we'll find it out from her. So let's go ahead and without further ado, have this beautiful conversation with Jennifer Weis. Hi, Jen. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great today. Our sun is shining. It's been pretty windy and rainy lately, so it was a beautiful weekend, and I got to spend it with my family, which is something I really enjoy doing.
That is really wonderful. It is really wonderful to have that time to spend with your family and near and dear ones, because that also makes life worth living. So, yeah, what does a beautiful life mean to you? Is it the beautiful sun with a beautiful cup of coffee or tea or drink?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me on your podcast today. And that is a great question. What does a beautiful life look like to me? I would say what I describe a beautiful life today probably looks very different than what I thought about 15 years ago when I was kind of, going through my own troubles and mental health issues. But a beautiful life today means that I'm in control of the decisions I make and where I spend my time and who I spend my time with. And for me, right, family comes first. I love spending the time with my family. My kids are in college, so I don't get to see them quite often. So my daughter was home this weekend and I got to spend some time with her, right? And I spend some time with my husband and I spend time, around the house working on different things. But I also love to travel and learn and see new things and do a lot of experiences. We can talk a little bit about it later, but, climbing mountains and whether it's Kilimanjaro or 14er in Colorado or running with my extended family or doing the Ironman with my son, right? So there's so many things, but I put family first and the experiences that we want to have in my learning and work and everything else come second.
Lovely. And your family comes first, and you have quite an adventurous family. I mean, all of you go on trekking all the way to Kilimanjaro. I mean, climbing up Kilimanjaro, not bad at all. I mean, I have a family who tells me you can go and you can be on the giant wheel. We are not going to climb up there. We really don't want to. But yes, family does come first. And that's actually what makes you feel a human, both at the start of the day and even when you're just about to wrap up your day. So yes, I
Well,
totally resonate with the feeling that you brought about having family first. Um, but has it ever happened with you that you have felt a little desynced from your family or from the society around? Where is this question coming from? Um, I'll talk to you about my experiences. There were certain stages when I felt disconnected that no one around is really understanding me. And that took me on a journey. Now, when I look back, it has been a pleasant journey since then, which led me to a lot of self discovery. But and I still love all the people more back now, and I understand them at a different level and in a different dimension that I did not understand earlier. But I'm just trying to see if that was my unique journey, or has it also happened to you and others around?
Yeah, you one of the things you said was it put you on a different path and you learn from it. And that's one of the things when I look back at my journey, which I'll talk about a little bit in a second. When I look back at my journey, I think about all the, when I was in it, it was hardships, it was challenges, it was struggles, right? It was burnout, it was depression. But when I'm on the other side of it and I look back, those were all learning opportunities, right? They were all the things that while you're in it, you've got that stress, the anxiety, the depression. But if you change your perspective on how you look at those things, you can now look at them as all the things that taught you the lessons that you learned and helped you grow as a person. And now, because of that, I'm talking to you here today. Because of that, I wrote a book. Because of that, I started a nonprofit. Because of that, right? So, all of those things that I learned. And so now I look at challenges and hardships as something different, right? I look at them as learning opportunities and I try to catch myself when I start to feel that burnout. And instead, I look at it as learning opportunities. So, where did that come from? I would probably say about 15 years ago, I was in this period where I was climbing an executive track, right, at the company I was at. And I just, because of my success, right, we just kept growing and growing and growing. And we just didn't have the resources and support and everything we needed. And I was at a point where I had extreme burnout. And I came to the realization at that time that it was not anybody else's responsibility but my own to get myself out of the burnout. It really, as we grew as a team, right? I went from being an individual contributor, and within 3 years, I had a team of 100 people,
Oh, wow.
right? Went from influencing about $200,000 to $1 billion business. And so it just, super successful, but just, I didn't know how to cope with all the pressures of it. I, there was a couple scenarios that I found myself in. One day I went to the office and 4 times I missed my exit. I drove right by the exit because I was so in my head and thinking that I had to get off, turn around. I missed it again, got off, turned around, missed it again. How does anybody miss an exit 4 times in the course of 20 minutes? Another time I went to the office and I had two different shoes on.
Hmm.
Another
Okay.
time I had to drive in, and by the time I got into the office, so I was working all day long. Then I would try to be a perfect mom to my kids and get involved, and then they'd go to bed, and then I'd work until midnight, 1 o'clock, and I got to the point where I had constant migraines. I was eating really unhealthy foods. I wasn't exercising, and I hit a point where I just something snapped, and got that extreme burnout, and I hit a wall, and I realized that something had to change. And that's when I started to take a step back and look at just the question you just asked when we started this. I started to look at what was important to me. What was I doing today? Like, hey, we want you to climb this ladder, which never really mattered to me. What mattered to me was helping and coaching and developing people. And I just stepped back to stop and take a look at it, and chose to really, I call it re-engineering my life and re-engineering how I thought about work. Instead of thinking about how I was going to help, do all the work to get ahead, I decided to make a change and empowered other people to take their control of their lives and the destiny of work. So that was really kind of the turning point.
So thank you for sharing that with us, Jen. And there are quite a few points that you bring about when you narrate your entire journey. Um, One is you talk about the extreme burnout showing up or manifesting in different ways, from starting to miss exits to putting on two different shoes. I mean, now it's a style, but I'm sure you did not put it up as a style.
Right.
Or feeling that I need to take care of my kids to the T, and then exerting yourself over there. So all these show different areas where there is a repeating pattern of not being able to make the point that you're trying to make, or doing it too much, but in the process somehow burning yourself out. Did you realize it during those moments that you're actually burning out? Or
No, no.
what was when you say that there was a moment of realization for you, when you realize that you really have hit a wall and you really need to look at things from other perspective, if you could
Yeah.
walk us through I mean, if it's a timeline, then I'm asking you to stretch that timeline a bit and walk us through the details of how did that unfold for you? How did the realization start? And after how long of being in this turmoil did it start? And how did you disentangle,
Yeah,
unentangle yourself?
I would probably say, as I mentioned, my career progression once the company I was with was acquired by this other company, and we took over a certain area, and we grew it very rapidly. I would, that was over the course of 3 years, and probably that last year is when I was just working 18-hour days, right? I mean, not 18-hour days, between work maybe 12 hours and then 4 hours of dedicated time. It was like there was no time for taking care of myself, right? I was always just taking care of other people, and there was no time for really taking care of myself and my health, and just downtime. And I probably kept going at that pace maybe 6 to 9 months, where it was just constant, 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 until the one day when I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And what I did was really interesting, and it's something I do all the time now. I picked a date 18 months in the future, and I said, that's the date I'm going to quit my job. And I basically, and now I approach this every time I do a role. I kind of have a timeline, because what it does is it changes something in your head. I said, in 18 months, I'm going to leave. What do I need to do as the director of this business, who has all those stuff and responsibility on me? What do I need to do in those 18 months to set everyone else up for success? So I did so many things in that time frame. A lot of the things that I talk about now, I have words on my wall. I have these cards here. This
Yes.
was an exercise I did with my team, and I said, I wanted to build. We were already a high performing team. I wanted to do even more with them. So I asked them the question: think of one person that you would drop everything you're doing to help. I don't need to know the person. I want to know why you would help that person. So they came back to me with all sorts of examples, and I narrowed it down to these three. So these cards are 12 years old, right? It's from back when I was at that business. I nailed it down to these 6 principles, trust, belief, courage, gratitude, passion, right? And what we did as a team then is I helped everybody pick one word that they wanted to focus on. First, they had to make a choice. Do you want to be a team that people want to work with? And everybody picked a word that they wanted to focus on, and like, how do you build trust, right? How do you build trust? How do you build belief that you believe in people? How do you build compassion? And those were the words that we worked on. That was one of the examples. So I basically spent 18 months working with all the different areas of the business to get them to own the piece that they should own, and then putting together things for the team that empowered people, that made people feel like they were part of a greater purpose. Because you mentioned something in the beginning: people aren't meant to be alone. They're not meant to live in isolation. They're meant to be part of something bigger.
Bigger. Yes.
And so that's what we did, is we built a team that felt like they were a team, that felt like they were contributing, and that wanted to contribute to everyone else. People wanted to come work on the team because they wanted to be part of that environment. And when I left, people followed me, when I'd gone here. So, and I stayed in touch, and I coached and developed and mentored a lot of the people that were on the team after I left, because they felt like they were part of something. So that was the big change. I picked a date 18 months in the future, and then I spent 18 months empowering, coaching, and developing, and making it about the people. And the amazing thing is, when I made it about the people, the results happened without focusing on the results. And
Wonderful.
so that's one of the things that I coach on. That's I plan on writing 3 books. That's book 2, is going to be on those 6 traits, and building kind of a high performing but with a purpose, team. So that'll be book 2.
Super. That gives me the right segue to asking you this question. Talk to us about your book one, Caught in the Act.
Yeah. Well, when I made that decision in the 18 months, I also made the decision to um, spend more time like learning and developing myself. But then also, I did a lot of activities. I've climbed mountains. I did an Ironman. I tried to figure out ways to challenge myself personally, and always learn and grow. And I actually, right before I wrote the book, I went to Colorado, and I went climbing a 14er. A 14er is a 14,000-foot mountain. And there's a group of girls, women, right, that do that. This year, we're taking a group of men who have been struggling with mental health. And we have older, role models and the younger kids going. So I went on a 3 week Colorado kind of refresh journey to focus on myself. I did that. And then during that came the idea for the Morning Cup, which was the website I launched. And it was really to start a blog and to do some empowering things. And I wrote about the first concept is the power of choice, which we'll talk about in a second. The second one was those 6 traits. And then
Yeah,
the
there,
third
there
one
are
is
four
personality.
areas of the book. Yeah.
Yep. So I went on that road trip. I launched the website. The day I got home, I got a phone call. Actually, I got a text first from my son's girlfriend. And she texted me and said that she'd gotten a text from my son that his roommate had taken his life and he found him. And he was sitting there waiting for the police. And he wasn't responding to the texts. And I had just gotten home from being gone for like 7 weeks and was not responding to the text. And so I said, told her and my daughter who was with her, go over there. And, and I ended up going up and visiting. But after that happened, I spent a month trying to figure out how to support my son, how to support our community, right? How to support just myself, right, in the process. And I ironically did a lot of prayer. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of visualization. I just pictured all these kids and all these adults and that have taken their life, and the hundreds of people that were impacted by it. And I wanted to do something, and I wanted everyone to know, right, the basic thing that you're not defined by the place you are right now, right? You're not defined by the beliefs and the thoughts that are currently in your head. And you have the power to choose, from this moment, how to maybe think about how you think about them differently. And to the point I mentioned in the beginning, I didn't know I was going to go on this whole journey and come on this podcast today. Someday, your story might spark somebody else. So I wrote a book. I wrote a book in a week between Christmas and New Year's. And then I spent the next month of January getting feedback on the book. And I spent the month kind of polishing it and kind of putting in, some more flow and lessons. And I released the book in February of this year. So the book is called Caught in the Act. And
Let's
and
see the
it's
book once.
Caught in the
Yeah.
Act. You can find it on Amazon.
And I see
But
you have a yin and a yang also. So,
yes, because it's one, it's the tree of knowledge in there too, right? It's really about, you might be thinking a certain way today, but you do have the power to catch yourself in that thought. You have the power to catch yourself in that action or that belief. And really, it's called the art of choosing for yourself to change your outcomes. So how do you catch yourself in the act of those limiting beliefs? And our thoughts, these things in our head do have the power to control how we do things, but we also have the power to control those thoughts so that we can change our perspectives and change our life.
wow, thank you for sharing that story with us. I mean, there are quite a few questions that are coming to me for each of the things that you're narrating.
Yeah,
So allow me to unpack them slowly.
yeah,
Um, but your book is described, or the review says that it's transformative, and I don't use the word lightly. So, and you have prescribed a four-step process of how to catch oneself in the act of getting into a spiral, a negative spiral of thought process, which leads to negative actions, something that ultimately degenerates you internally before it becomes an extreme. So, I mean, how does why don't you walk us through the four steps? I'll tell you what the four steps are based on what I've seen. Introduction, the catch, the choice, and the change.
yeah,
Um, if you can walk us through
yeah,
how you see these four steps, and what you're talking of is more of neuroplasticity, where one is able to rewire the way we are thinking and the way we are approaching scenarios, so you don't get impacted by your thoughts, but you use them as a means of empowering yourself and climbing up. So
yeah.
every situation can be interpreted in many ways, and I think that's where it is coming from, isn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, I'll start with the first quote you'll find in chapter 1 of the book, and it's by Jordan B. Peterson, and he talks about you can only find out what you actually believe rather than what you think by watching how you act. Let me give you an example, and this is the example that I actually kick off the book with, and I think it's an example that most people can relate to. And it's road rage, my road rage, right? You're driving down the road, somebody suddenly cuts you off. What do most people do?
Swear.
Yeah, hand gestures, swear, speed up, what you name it. And I used to do that. I used to have road rage, and I used to have even work rage and family rage. If anybody interrupted me during that time when I was overwhelmed, I would snap, I would be irritated. And ironically, my sister pointed this out, and I forgot it was actually her. I was driving in the car once in my road rage fit, and my sister stopped me and said, "Why are you yelling at that person?" And I'm like, "Well, they cut me off." She's like, "They probably didn't even know they cut you off." And I was like, "Huh." And then she's like, "And you're going to let them impact the rest of your day because of that?" And she then said I went on to yell at her. But then you stop and think about it, right? Okay, so I get cut off, and maybe I was in a happy mood to begin with. Now I'm angry. I didn't even realize I switched from being happy to angry. And then you're angry, you're frustrated. Guess what? You go in the office, someone says something or whatever, and you might snap at them. And now guess what? You started them on a spiral because now they feel that frustration, and it just keeps going. But instead, what if you reframed that and you got cut off and you're like, "Oh, thank God that person didn't hit me." Now you feel grateful. And then you might even give them a blessing and say, "I hope you make it safely on your
Yeah,
way."
very
And then
much
you go on.
required for them.
Like one thought, right? Should I think and be angry and get frustrated? Or should I think, "Oh, wow, I'm so happy he didn't hit me," right? Or you could think, "Hey, I've been there. Maybe they're on a hurry to go somewhere. I don't know. What do I know about the person in the other car, right? Maybe they're on a hurry. Maybe they're going to a funeral. Maybe they're going to the hospital." Like I could have compassion or empathy for that person, right? And really do it there. So, or I could be like, "I am so grateful. I'm on the road, on my way to the job, or on my way to see a friend." Like there's so many ways to think about it, but most people don't think. They think, but they don't know they're thinking, and they don't know they went from being cut off to honking the horn, swearing, and using hand gestures.
How
So,
did
yeah,
honking the horn, swearing in, and using hand gestures start for you? How did you get into this as a default mode?
good question. I don't know. I don't know. And
It's
see,
so much conditioned
yeah, maybe I saw somebody else do it when I was growing up.
and it seemed cool,
Maybe,
maybe.
maybe I did it one day and I got a charge out of it because I was mad and I wanted to. It takes 21 days to build a habit. So when you start doing something and all of a sudden you did it once and you keep doing it, it just keeps building and you stop thinking about it. And actually, Harvard Business Review says that only 85 to 90% of individuals are self aware. What that means is everybody else says something like the quote I did. They say, "I'm a kind and patient person," but when they act, right, they got the road rage. Or they might say, "I'm healthy," yet they're snacking in the pantry every day and eating unhealthy meetings and skipping exercise. Or they say, "Family comes first," yet when they're with their family, they're on their phone. Or they skip it to go out with their buddies. So for the people listening today, it's really about, stop and take a look at what you say and what you do, and how do you start to catch yourself kind of in that disparity between how you act. You can do a reflection at the end of the day and say, "Well, what did I do today that if I had a choice to do it again, what would I change?" And you asked the question of when, what made me do that. Part of becoming self-aware isn't necessarily asking the why. I might not need to know why I got that way. I just need to ask myself the question, what if I did it differently? Is this the person I want to be? An angry, bitter, argumentative
What if
person?
someone enjoys being angry, bitter, argumentative? You did
Well,
enjoy it at one point, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I didn't know I enjoyed it or not. I did it without even thinking
Ah,
about whether I enjoyed it or not. And that goes to the second part of the introduction. It's accountability. The one thing about the book, I will warn anybody, is most people like to play a victim and blame someone else. Well, it's his fault for cutting me off, so therefore I have a right to be angry, right? Or, well, if that person doesn't change, I'm not going to change. Or
we
my
do it.
accountability guardrail is actually I have to know all the answers. It has to be my way. I have to figure it out versus being open to others, right? Or you're living in the past, like, why did that happen? Why did that happen? Who cares why? Let's figure out what you want
What
to
we
do
can do right
differently.
now. Yes.
Yep. So the book starts out with the introduction around how your an event triggers a thought, which triggers thinking, which triggers emotions, which triggers an action, and then how do you reframe it? And I use gratitude a lot to reframe, because if you think like, oh, I'm grateful, I now know that I just feel like I want to argue, and then change that. So, but then you have to be accountable. It's up to you to make the change. You can't tie your own change to somebody else. So that's the introduction.
Okay. And then comes the catch. So,
Then comes the catch. Yep. Well, so um, the interesting thing is you brought it up when you mentioned, how did you get there? Like, most of us have a set of beliefs that we carry. Maybe we learned it from school, like you have to do things a certain way, or maybe you learned it from your parents. You have to get this job, you have to do this, you have to go to college, you have to, like, maybe we learned it from work, right? Like, you got to get this done. We all work this amount of times. You learned it from friends, you learned it from politics, you learned it from social media. Somewhere along the way, you instilled in your brain a set of beliefs. And it's the story you tell yourself over and over, like, I'm not good at public speaking, or I'm not very lucky, or you could change that, I'm awesome at public speaking, and I am very lucky. So for every negative limiting belief, there's a positive belief, and once you start to understand what one is, you can choose a different route. So getting caught in the act is really looking at the actions, like I just mentioned. Like, how do you stop and catch yourself when you do something that doesn't really resonate with who you want to be? Or you can catch yourself when you're thinking before it results in an emotion or an action. So as you get better at catching yourself in the act and becoming self-aware, you learn how to evaluate and reflect on the activities and the actions you took. So that's what catching yourself in the act is. And the best ways to do it, the 3 ways I recommend in the book. The first one is to set a time, 5-10 minutes at the end of the day, for reflection. And you can start by thinking back over the day. What did I do today that if I had a chance, I would do it differently next time? And just start keeping a list of the things and the actions that you took. The second way is this is an interesting, people watch. Go to the mall, go to somewhere public, and just watch people. And when you see them do something, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? Do you judge them because they're yelling at their kids? Do you look at someone where the couple's sitting on their phone? Like, think about how you think about, like, why, and then think about what that person might be thinking to do that. And now you can start to see how you think about other people. So you can do people watching. And then the third one is try to catch yourself in the act of having that initial thought and your emotions. Like, hey, someone cut you off. Pause, breathe, give yourself a second. Viktor E. Frankl, he's a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote a book. And one of the quotes that he wrote in the book, and I don't remember it word for word. You can find it in the book. But between the stimulus, like the event, and the response, there's a space, right? And in that space, you have the power to choose. And in that choice lies your growth and your freedom. Being a Holocaust survivor and being in the concentration camps, he had a choice. The people there that had hope for the future, the ones that gave themselves a purpose, were the ones that found a way to survive. And the ones that had no hope and no purpose, right? And so he really wants people to stop. Something happens, pause, think about it, and then you can change, catch yourself in that moment and change it. So that's a quote that I really like, that kind of resonates with it. I use a tool that I have pause, right? So you have to first stop at it, just breathe. So if I feel a thought come on or emotion come on, it's like, stop, just breathe, be kind. You might need to be kind to yourself, because you might have to be kind that you almost did something you would have regretted, right? And then let go of that emotion, so that you have a moment, that space, so that you can choose what comes next. So that's the tool that I like to use during the catch, is really, just breathe, be kind, and let go.
talk to us about the third and fourth step, and then we'll talk more about how to read the book.
Yeah, and curious, and maybe you have some reflections on this too. And for those listening today, right, as we talk about these different steps, one of the questions for anyone out there that wants to think about it is, when have you reacted, right? And you immediately after wished you hadn't taken that reaction, right? Maybe snapped at a friend, a coworker, maybe sent that email that after you sent it, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? And that's how you kind of start catching yourself in the act. So that's that one. Step or part 3 is really the choice.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's, I quote my son, he was trying to train to break the school record for the 800, which is a half a mile sprint. Unfortunately, he never got to because of COVID, but he had on his wall, break the switch. And then he also had the time. And it's really the break the switch means kind of like you referenced neuroplasticity before.
Yes.
Your brain is hardwired a certain way because you've repetitively done something. You need to break that hardwiring to give it a new path.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where break the switch comes from. So how do you go from one that you always do once you catch yourself in the act? How do you break that switch? And so that's Nate's, Nate is my son. That's something that I kind of use, breaking the switch. So I created a little framework that I follow. I call it the ABC-XYZ framework. ABC is acknowledge, be grateful, and choose. So what that means is acknowledge that you caught yourself in the act. I acknowledge that I tend to get argumentative when somebody corrects me. I'm just, making that piece up, right? So you need to acknowledge it, because if you don't acknowledge it, you can't change it. So that's the first thing, is acknowledge actually what happened. The second thing is be grateful. Be grateful. You're actually now aware that there's something you want to change, right?
Yes.
If you're not grateful, it goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning about, challenges are now opportunities for growth. Hey, I am aware that I get angry when something happens, or that I have this limiting belief. Now I can be grateful because I know it.
In
And
fact,
once
being
yeah,
grateful is way of building the pathways in your brain of
yep,
welcoming those kinds of perspectives more.
yeah,
So
it's almost like,
scientifically
yes,
how it works. Yes. So
yes, I know I'm an angry person.
next time your brain will be more open to such a thought process
Yes.
instead of giving into the previous pattern. So that's about keeping the thought process open.
Yeah. Well, and
Scientifically, that's
they
right.
also say that gratitude uh, lowers your stress level. Gratitude keeps you more open to not reacting to things, right? Gratitude helps you to look at the positive in things. Gratitude keeps you having more empathy for other people. There's so many benefits to gratitude, right? People that are grateful live longer. I mean, there's so many studies around gratitude. So just incorporating gratitude in there is super, super important. So you got to acknowledge it's there. Then you're grateful, and then you choose, right? You need to choose that you want to make a change. So, now it comes down to the accountability. You now know that that's what you do, or that's the limiting belief you have. You're grateful for it, but now you need to choose. And then once you choose to make a change, then that's where the XYZ comes in. X is exercise, kind of like exorcism, means let go, right? Get rid of any of the negative thoughts or emotions that come with it. Let it go. And then the Y is you. Well, now that you let it go, there's this pathway in your brain that's like, uh-oh, like, which way do I go? So that pathway then says, tell your brain, well, what should it do instead? And then the Z is Zen. You activate that moment of calm clarity. So exercise it, get rid of it. You pick what it should be instead, and then Zen. And for Zen, I like to visualize. So I'll close my eyes, and you can visualize the original you and like all the negative emotions that went with it, and then visualize the you want to be instead. So it's I'll give you a real example. Just last week, normally I get up, and this wasn't my routine to begin with, but normally I get up in the morning, my alarm goes off, I press snooze, but I press snooze because then I meditate for 10 minutes, right? I think about my day, I put positive thoughts, intentions in my head from the day one, then I get up and I go work out. Then if there's any negativity in there, then I take a shower and I let the shower like drain like all the negativity away. Well, the other day I woke up an hour and a half before I normally do. I was woken up an hour and a half before I normally do. So the first thought in my head was, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep. Right. So instead of going through my normal thing of meditation, I look at my phone, I see it's an hour and a half early, and then I'm like, oh, shoot. And then I made the mistake of looking at my day and looking at my email and then seeing like all these problems with email. And so not, I'm
You got
tired, I'm
into the
crappy to
loop.
begin with. Then I go in a downhill spiral because I see all the
Hmm.
stuff at work that, issues. Then I'm snapping at people. Then I sat down on my computer and I wrote a nasty email. Like, it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't probably as political as
I'm
I would
thinking
want it to
about
be.
all that's going on in your mind, not about the email. I'm like,
And
poor
then
girl, she had to wake up and do all this.
then I tried to take the dog for a walk and she wouldn't go for a walk. And my day started like terribly, but it started with the first thought when I woke up. I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep. So what did I do? I went and took a shower because I like water and I do a
When did
really
you
good
catch
thinking in the
yourself in
bathroom.
the act? Was it when you
I
were
caught
taking your
myself
dog?
in the shower. Yep. So all of a sudden I can see the mirror from my shower. I can't see myself, but I saw the mirror and I'm like, is this really how I want my day to go? Like, is this really how I want my day to go? I've been snapping, argumentative, crabby, tired, etc. No, it's not how I want my day to go. And I'm like, I am so grateful that I caught myself before I just ruined an entire day and ruined relationships with other people because I was crabby, right? And argumentative. So I'm like, how do I want my day to go instead? Right? I want to have great conversations and I want to be productive and I want to go do this and that. I set the intentions for the day, right? I didn't close my eyes. I might have slipped and fallen in the shower. So I didn't close my eyes and activate Zen, but I did visualize, in front of me. So
Yeah.
but that's a real live example. That's the difference between what's the first thought in your head in the morning,
Hmm, hmm,
an
hmm,
empowering one like a meditation,
hmm.
right? And then getting up and exercising and feeling good and then eating a healthy breakfast. Or I'm tired, I didn't get enough sleep, and making the mistake of not doing my
The entire world
meditation.
seems to be
Yep.
against you after that.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
So it spirals down really quickly because of the first thought in your head. And the rest of the day I was alive and full of energy, right? Because I made that choice, right? I could have chosen to not catch myself and keep going. So that's what the choice is all about. ABC-XYZ. Catching
I
yourself,
love the way you
changing
put it,
that.
ABC-XYZ. That makes it so easy to relate to and even remember the thoughts. So I do have a, question with respect to the C as to change. There are situations where you know what change to choose for. But
Yeah.
what if it's a complex situation where there could be two, three right outcomes and you do not know which one is the right choice to make? Do you have
Yeah.
any advice on how to handle that? And X exhausts, like letting go,
Well,
uh,
I'll give,
exorcise or let go, right? That's
yeah.
what you mean.
Yep.
How does one let go? Maybe that comes from my personal difficulty in letting go of anything. Maybe that's why I have this question in mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is not comfort. You just don't know how to let go. I
You
mean,
know,
I can't tell myself let go and the feeling goes away. I really need to work through it for days together.
Well,
So,
that's where the change comes in the next part, right? Because sometimes all it takes is one time to like road rage. Once I understood what I was doing, I never ever have it anymore, right? I actually, when someone cuts me off, I'm actually grateful because it gives me a chance to say thank you and right. So some things are really easy
yes.
and other things are hard. I was coaching a person and they had a personal relationship that they had to let go of, and that's not an easy thing to do. Or maybe so it doesn't mean day one that you do it once and you can let it go. Sometimes it takes a period of time, and that's where when in the last section of the book, it's the change. It's how do you implement a daily practice? Maybe it's visualization, right? And I did say it takes 21 days to build a habit. So some of these changes, so you start to small, catch yourself in some things and learn the methodology and learn some of the daily practices and then start to tackle some of the bigger things that are deep seated. But let me give you an example. So when my son's friend took his life, he wasn't the only one. There were six more in our community. Our community is now an official suicide cluster. Six more young boys took their life between 15 and 26. And there's been other suicide attempts that aren't publicized. I started a nonprofit, Mission Save a Life,
Mission
which
Save a Life, which
that's
we
dedicated
are.
to. There's a principal on our board. There's a school board president on our board, and then there's a couple people that work with me in technology on the board. But when this first happened, I had no idea what to do. So what did I do? Every morning I would wake up with the emotions of the grief and the guilt. And it was so hard. I couldn't let go. I acknowledged that they were there. I was not grateful it happened, but grateful that I knew because I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So over the course of December, I spent 2 hours a day in mindful activities. I would meditate. I would pray. I even did manifestation. Like I would do like learn the three scenes technique, right?
Mhm, mhm.
You picture the problem. I would picture the young men, the 48,000 people in the United States that took their life, and I would picture all the people associated with them, and then I would spread it over the globe, and I would feel like what it felt to have
It
that.
is 48,000 who take their life, but there is at least a 4 million more who get impacted, Jen,
Well, it's
who are
48,000 people who took
shaken
their
by
life.
such an incident. Yeah.
The US stat is 48,000 people took their life. This is 2021. Like 1.7 attempted, 3.4 reported creating a plan, and 17 or 12.3 seriously considered. One in every eight individuals has a mental health disorder, suicide and depression. One in nine high school kids have said they've attempted suicide. I mean, the statistics, I just pictured those. So I spent a month prayer manifestation, and all of a sudden one day it said, write a book, right? Take everything you know and write a book because it might be a tool to help other people. Then one day it said, start a nonprofit, right? Because people need to be aware that this is a problem. People need to be aware how to educate themselves. So start a nonprofit, right? And I turned the grief and the guilt and all those things into something with purpose and something I could channel what I knew into it. And so that's why I created the book. But I didn't know how to do that day one. I didn't know how to let go of those things.
The
But
iteration.
but because I started a practice of every morning meditating. I didn't do that before. I didn't do the meditation. I got up and worked out, but I didn't do meditation. So I would spend either 10 minutes meditating, or if I had extra time in the day, I would do 10 minutes meditating and then an hour of learning some of these skills and some of these practices. I didn't do that before, but I didn't know what to do. And I still don't know what to do, but I do know now that people, places, and things will be put in my path that help me. And
Yes.
so yeah, you might not know, but how can you start a practice of journaling? How can you start a practice of meditating, right? It's how do you build a daily habit? You might need to spend 21 days on something you need to let go of and just keep visualizing letting go, right? Keep meditating on it that you want to let go. If you believe in God, maybe do a prayer that God takes that burden off of you. See what happens in 21 days if something doesn't happen before then. So the big challenges might need that extra time.
So you're saying that take up that one problem or one thing that you've already recognized as something you want to change in your life, and that's the catch that you come to, and then practice ABC-XYZ on it, and see over a period of iterate this for a change at least for 21 days, and take into practice whatever you believe in. If you believe in meditation, so be it. If you believe in God and prayer, so be it. Whatever works for you, but do it continuously as a ritual for 21 days, and then reflect back on what was your scenario 21 days back and what is your scenario now. And if you were looking for an answer, like the C that I was talking about, change, if you're looking for an answer, has some intuition come to you about it?
Yeah.
Like
And
you got the intuition to write the book, you got the intuition to start mission save a life org.
yeah,
So yes, so these are changes that you were drawn towards based on your practice and based on the depth that the practice brought over a period of time.
yeah. It's like I had a friend that had a bad work scenario, and she kept blaming it on everybody at work. And I'm sure they had a place in it. And I asked her one day, and I said, "Well, what's your role? Maybe if you came in the next day, I mean, and this was going on for a long time, right? Where she hated going into work. What if you came in with a completely different attitude, and instead of bracing every time a certain person comes, why not change that?" Oh my God, she said it changed the environment overnight, because you weren't bracing for an argument. So they didn't come in bracing for an argument. So it's like, how do you, when you catch yourself getting frustrated, I told her, put something on your desk, right? I have this on my desk, or I have my little Iron Man, right, coin. Um,
You do have your Iron Man medal on the back.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have the Iron Man medal. My son and I did
And
the
there is
Iron Man.
morning cup and there is thankful courage. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So it's like maybe there's something you want to grab when get a coin, put it in your pocket, like and use that, or get a stone. This happens to be a moonstone, but um, so there's different things you can use. But yeah, it some changes aren't going to be easy, but you know work on different practices, journaling, meditation, prayer, and as you start to and practice letting go, and eventually. you will be able to start releasing some of those emotions and some of those problems. But if you expect it to happen overnight, might not happen. And if you give up too soon, you might be giving up before you make the change.
Makes sense. Mm, how would you, or who is your right audience for the book? Someone who's already self-aware of what changes they want. And how would you want a person to read it? I'll tell you where I'm coming from. And I ask this to all the authors whom I have an interview with. Um, if we are talking of a self-help book, or even for that matter, Alchemist, how Paulo Coelho asks us to read is he says that just open any page. Once you've read it through, you still have the book with you because these are treasure troves.
Yeah.
Just instinctively open up any page, and what comes across is what you were intuitively looking for as an answer. So, from that perspective, I don't know how far this applies to your book because there is a
Yeah.
certain step and certain process of doing it. Just as you're recommending that use a 21-day process to put things into action and to see a change manifest before you, no matter how small or big or complex or simple it is. Similarly, what is the process of approaching your book to make most of the knowledge that you've captured there?
Yeah. So the first question you ask is who should read the book?
Yes.
Um, if you are not ready to take accountability, don't read the book. Right.
How
So
do I know that I'm ready to take accountability? Because, as you said, sometimes we think
yeah.
that we are family people, but then we turn out to be people who are not that involved with the family. So how
Yeah.
do we know in the
Well,
first place? Yeah.
so the first thing would be is, do you know of an area of your life that you want to change? Do you feel like you've just been drifting along and climbing the corporate ladder or doing what other people told you? Is your life, are you living the life you want to be living? That's the first one. If you're like, absolutely, I love my life, well, you may not need, what's in the book. But if you feel like, you're living a life that's not really your own, or you're just living for somebody else or somebody else's expectations, or there's something you want to change, that's the first piece. And if you're willing to take accountability, then it's a great tool. Now, I'm super practical. I love reading and I love doing books, but I don't like it when I finish the book and I'm like, that's a lot of great information, but I have no idea what to do with it. So I wrote the book, I think, in a way that is sequential, right? You can go to the back, and the back has a bunch of quotes. I took all the quotes and the key learnings and I put them in the back. So you could go back there and find something and read about it, but it does build, right? The intro talks about the foundation of your brain and how it works and accountability. Then it's how do you catch yourself, right, in these limiting beliefs and actions. And then it's like, the choice, how do you make a choice? And then last is the change. So I would read it in order. I'm in the middle of recording a podcast series
Oh, wow.
that
The morning
follows the
cup,
book.
the morning
Yep,
cup
it's
is coming up.
yep, yep. So I'm using the Morning Cup and I'm recording a podcast series that follows along. So you could follow that podcast series at the same time with it and kind of walk you through the book. But yeah, I would read it in order, and I would read it. But then after you finish a chapter, take time to journal or take time to think about it and put some of the activities in place versus just reading it through. The quote that you referenced earlier on the back, like uh,
It's transformative, and I
yeah, and
don't mean it lightly.
it's it's for people who thought they were doing things, and then all of a sudden they read an example and like, holy cow, I do that. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even realize I was doing that. That's why people watching is interesting, because you might see somebody and you're like, hey, wait, I do that, and then you can start thinking about those pieces. So yeah, if you want to make a change and you're ready to take accountability for it, then the book is a good solution for you.
Duly noted. And I'll put that in caption along the side and how you recommend having a journal so that our audience gets it and approaches the book accordingly. We will
Yeah,
definitely have the book in the description. And I believe you're okay if we put Mission Save a Life link also in the description because it's
yeah.
about you, Jen, and it is
Well,
something that you
and
have done. So,
the recording actually will be on Mission Save Life's community. That's where you'll get the recording, the course, and the discussion group. I'll probably have there'll probably also be out on YouTube, the blogs as well. But right now they're in the Mission Save Life community. So
are you also going to put have an Audible on Caught in the Act?
I've had a lot of requests for that. I'm not sure how to do that yet, and it is on my checklist. It is on my list of things I want to do, but I haven't gotten that far yet. If anybody wants to reach out to me and tell me how to create an Audible, let me know.
Sure, sure. So we'll watch out for our audience to
Yeah.
approach you for the audible version of the book. Um, what we spoke about your journey from the road rage Jen to the Zen Jen to
Yeah.
the one who's changing lives in a big way and bringing meaning to quite a few lives around, while handling her turmoils and her um, journey in a much more empowered way. Where do we see Jen 5 years from now? What will her journey look like? Have you thought of it?
Yeah. I want to be able to help as many people as possible catch themselves in the act, right? So it could be, speaking. It could be going into schools. I'm a big proponent for helping kids. I'd love to build a curriculum for kids around getting caught in the act and building those six traits and building a life compass. But at the end of the day, I get the most rewarding by helping other people, right, through their problems or achieve things that they didn't think they could. That's where I get the most benefit. So you know, I'm open to where Mission Save a Life goes. Everything is crowdsourced on Mission Save a Life, and I'm open to the universe or God telling me what I should be doing, which is something I've always tried to control everything. I'm not controlling anything right now, other than how I approach the day and how I'm, open to new ideas. So yeah, 5 years from now, I still hope to be impacting lives and helping people get caught in the act so they can choose for themselves.
Sure, Jen. I hope 5 years from now you would have actually handled the problem so well that everyone would have known how to catch themselves in the act. And then, actually, or quite a few of us would have known at least, realistically speaking, so that we can tell others around
Yeah.
and we all evolve to the next level as a human species altogether.
I want everybody to know, again, like I mentioned earlier, I want everybody to know that no matter where they are today, it doesn't always have to be that way.
And it doesn't define them.
And
It
it doesn't
doesn't
define them.
define where you're
No,
coming from, nowhere defines where you're going. You just need to
no.
focus on where you need to be, and unknown paths, invisible paths will lay out themselves for you
Yes.
if you just keep looking for them.
And everything you're going through today is only going to make you grow and be
Yes.
stronger and learn from it. And then someday you'll be able to help somebody else who's where you are today. Like every
Yes.
voice matters. Every individual is a piece to the puzzle. We are all meant to be, right, part of one big body of, you're not meant to be by yourself, and you're not meant to look and feel and act like everybody else. You're meant to be you.
Yes.
So, hopefully someday everyone realizes that. All the people I talked to, they had no idea that their story was going to matter, right? They didn't know that their trouble and their hardship would someday turn into them helping somebody else do the same thing. And so, yeah, you won't always be where you are, and just find the light on the other side, right? That yin yang symbol. You might be here today, find that branch that gets you to the light and gets you to a new way of thinking and a new perspective, shifting that, and you know, help find yourself your way
Very,
out.
very, very, very well put, Jen. And allow me to add this to your yin and yang symbol, which crossed my mind when I saw it now when you lifted the book.
Yeah.
Even in that darkness, there is a point which is enlightened.
Yes.
So stay there. Even if you arrive at the eye of the storm, there will be calm. But it means something, and it anyway passes. As you said, everything is transient. Life itself is transient. So there is no
And
point ending it beforehand. Yeah.
well, and the last point there is, maybe you're already in the light, right? And you've had some roots. So turn around and see if and notice if somebody else is not, and reach down and give them a hand and pull, right, that other person out of the darkness, right? That's where your voice, that's where your story, that's where your ability to look around and see the people around you and what they might be going through and knowing the
Empathize with them.
signs.
Hmm.
You can pull somebody else out of the darkness and bring them to the light, and they can do the same thing.
So next time you see someone who seems to be in darkness, observe first or pay attention if they are in darkness and figure out what is the best way of helping them in a way that is acceptable to them, because having that sensitivity is also very important. That's why I'm bringing up this 10,
Yeah.
and help them come out of the darkness where they feel stuck. Yeah.
And sometimes it's not about you as the individual. You don't have to do it for them or tell them what to do. Sometimes that person is just looking for a connection. Sometimes they just want to know that someone notices them, someone asks them, and then just
They're
listen.
just seen.
They just want to be seen. And most people feel that are in a dark place, feel that they're a burden to everyone else, feel that everybody else would be better off without them. So just letting, hey, I noticed you didn't see yourself lately. Is everything okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? You don't have to fix it. They don't actually want you to fix it in a lot of cases. Unless they ask for help, just be there for them and just listen.
Noted. Just be there for them and just listen.
Yes.
Even if you
Yes.
can be present for a person and truly listen to them, that definitely gives them the right ambience to open up and share
Yep.
enough to lighten their burden.
Yep. And then they also know that they have a lifeline later if they get back in that spot. They
Yes,
know they have someone they can reach out to.
yes, yes.
So, kind of maybe to close out some of the things, the book is there, and the book is really meant for, like I said, that individual that knows they want to change something, or they know their life isn't the way they want it to be, and they want to work on the things to catch themselves in the act. But then if you want to learn more about behaviors to look out for, how do you start the conversation like we just talked about, that's where Mission Save a Life comes in. So it's just missionsavealife.org. We have a community site embedded in there, and you can go, and there's a knowledge base, and you can have conversations, and you can join the discussion. But that's a place for people to go that can, that want to be around other people that are trying to help, right? And in trying to be encouraging.
I've been there on that community. I'm yet to contribute with my posts. I'll do that. But I do find the posts that come in quite inspiring, and the discussions that happen quite enriching, per
Yeah.
se. So thank you. Thank you for creating that.
And we're new, right? We're only as good as the people that want to come, but the couple of us that are in there that are pretty active, find a lot of benefit out of it, and we kind of bringing each other along and keeping us making our good daily choices, in the morning.
May you be empowered much more with the right kind of people and the right kind of energy to take your mission to the next level, to actually be able to spread this word about how to catch people in the act who are not aware themselves, because those are the ones whom we need to catch.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll find many readers for Caught in the Act, and we'll be putting the link below in the description so that people go and check out your book on Amazon. And all the best on your journey ahead, Jen. And anyway, we'll stay connected through all the different mediums that we are currently connected with. Thank you for doing this podcast with me. And thank you for sharing your life, your book, and your mission and your story.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate with you on the different topics that we've been talking about. And
Definitely.
yeah, I'm quite hopeful, right, that the things that we're doing around Mission Save a Life and potentially the book will have an impact.
It will. It will. And it'll have the right kind of impact because it is made with the right kind of intent. And God bless you. Have a lovely life ahead. I mean, evening time ahead, and we will
Yes.
stay connected. So,
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to join you today.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Take
Thanks.
care, Jen. Bye. So, did you like that conversation? Were there some key takeaways that you're mulling over? I hope you find some things at least very relevant and some things worth thinking over. Do go ahead and get your copy of Caught in the Act, and I will keep bringing more and more conversations from all around the world to you so that you and I together understand what are the tenets that we humans operate through. Despite the different frameworks that we conform to, we don't conform to, perhaps our feelings in the core remain the same. Perhaps our definition of success when it comes inward remains the same, how we feel within. We will stay connected on this, but don't forget to every day keep building your best version of life. And at the same time, do not forget to unplug that genius within you, which is lurking somewhere down there and thinking how to come out of all these frameworks that I'm bound in. Every framework binds us as long as we conform to it. Do whatever is actually truly something that appeals to you. Have a lovely week ahead. We will stay connected. Bye.